Good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled July meeting of the Kirkwood School District Board of Education. At this time of the meeting, we solicit and welcome public comment. I have two of these yellow cards. If anybody would like to fill one out and speak, we'd love to hear from you. First up is Ms. Leah Brownstein.
Hi. I am a parent of two children that attend Tillman Elementary. I believe that Tillman needs all the support it can get educationally and financially because of the influx of new students we received last year, 66 total. The fourth grade class alone, where my son was a student, received 24 new students, both from the transfer program and those moving into the district. It was a difficult year with classroom interruptions, fights, and bullying that was unusual for our school. Many parents have talked to the school administration, and it was confirmed that there was indeed a number of problems. They have recognized the need for additional resources for the upcoming school year and will be implementing a new program to help with the issue of bullying. I'm optimistic that 2014-2015 will be a better year. Because of the need for additional resources at our school, I'm concerned about the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's request on behalf of Riverview Gardens to accept a lower tuition rate. I'm especially concerned because next year, school year, our district will be running a deficit. I feel at some point someone has to speak up for Kirkwood. Riverview Gardens chose Kirkwood to educate their students knowing the cost of our tuition. Just because we were chosen as a receiving school district does not mean that we are financially responsible for the lack of long-term planning of others. My responsibility as a parent is to give my child the best education possible. That's why we chose Kirkwood 12 years ago as a place to raise our family and educate our children. As a Kirkwood resident, I'm responsible for supporting my community and our schools. But I refuse to be held responsible for a law that physically and financially burdens select schools in the name of education reform. Please stand up for the taxpayers of Kirkwood and require Riverview to pay the full tuition. Kirkwood School District needs to prove fiscal responsibility in order to ensure the taxpayers will vote for a potential tax increase in 2015. In addition, we need every dollar of tuition money so that we can continue to be one of the best districts in the state and the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bronstein, and be aware that on tonight's agenda we are going to be discussing the tuition rate charged to non-resident students. Dr. Williams will be making a recommendation to the board, and we will discuss the tuition rate that Dr. Williams proposes we adopt. Thanks for your comment. Next up, Mr. Bob Miller.
Excuse me. I have a bone to pick with you. You picked one of my main topics I wanted to talk about. And you did it much more eloquently than I did. You were prepared. But anyway, I'm here for the same reason, and I hear what she said very eloquently. I don't want state takeover. And what this DESI is doing, it sounds to me like it's state takeover. They're all indecisions at the expense of these poor students. And we have no option here with the Riverview Gardens. If we were talking just Normandy, well, they decided to change the name there so that they wouldn't have to transfer students out of there. Just, they're playing name games. There's unaccredited, provisionally unaccredited, there's accredited, and accredited with distinction. That's the way it's been, but DESI decided to throw something new in there, not credited, playing with words. And then that takes them out from under being able to transfer out of there. And also there's state money that's just been allocated by the legislature this year to pay for pre-K, which I think these poor students in Normandy and Riverview Gardens can still get this money because they're still unaccredited, but it'll knock out Normandy because they're not credited, no longer unaccredited. So that's hurting this school district of Normandy also. But anyway, it sounds to me like they're making their own laws. It's been a long time ago since I studied politics or whatever you call it, political science, but there used to be an executive branch, a legislative branch, and a branch that enforces this, whatever. So I told you it's been a long time ago. But it sounds to me like the executive branch is becoming the legislative branch. They're making the decisions. And Nixon's the one that, you know, the legislature, such a problem, just like the federal level between the two parties. They got together and worked hard and came up with some sort of a plan that was much, much better than what we're going with now. And the governor squashed it. I don't think they'll be able to override it next month when they come back in September. But anyway, there's a good new lawsuit that we'll all be paying for, and maybe it'll come out to our advantage. This Normandy school parents with 8 or 10 kids that are going to be in court this coming 6th and 7th of next month. I hope we fill up the courtrooms with people and parents that want to transfer their kids out because that's in the best interest. And the Constitution says everyone should have equal opportunity for good education. And I know Melville's in the same situation as you guys. They're pressed for money too. They meet later this week, and they're dealing with the same thing. Several busloads of students from Riverview Gardens. And I know the superintendent. I don't know the superintendent. It's new now. Knost went from there up to, okay, I'm sorry. But anyway, thank you for your time. And the kids enjoyed here. They enjoyed every place else they transferred to. Now they're being thrown back into that mess. Thank you. I rest my case.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Miller. Next up is 2.02, approval of the agenda for this evening's regular board meeting. This is an action item.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Next up, 2.03, awards and honors report. Ms. Ginger Casey.
I hope you all received your invitation to the splash breaking, which will occur on August the 6th at Kirkwood High School near the Chopin parking lot. It's going to be something like we've never had before, a little bit of water fun. I do not think you need to wear your swimming suits, but it's going to be interesting, and we're going to honor the Walker Foundation and also celebrate the groundbreaking of our the Walker Natatorium. So I hope to be able to see all of you there. I have just 2 little short agenda items. It has been summer, or honors, I should say. Tabitha Stowers placed 3rd in the Youth Media Contest. Tabitha is an 8th grade student at North Kirkwood Middle School, and she won 3rd place in the media contest offered through the Missouri Council on Activity and Nutrition. She received a $100 Amazon gift card and one for North Kirkwood Middle School as well. The contest was a pilot project established by MOCAN to encourage students to share their ideas on healthy eating and active living. Also, Susan Bay, daughter of Bill and Angie Bay, former school board member, Angie, a Kirkwood High School 2009 graduate, received the prestigious German Academic Exchange Service Scholarship and will spend the 2014-15 academic year at a university in Germany. I'm not going to try and pronounce that. If anybody here wants to take a crack, please do. But she will conduct research with a professor, Hans Gunther Ottenberg, at that university. She will work to examine 9 operatic works by German composer Johann Adam Hiller during the years 1766 and 1773. Susan graduated summa cum laude from Belmont University in 2013. She earned her bachelor's degree in music, classical performance, while also completing the honors program. She spent the last year working at the Country Music Hall of Fame in Nashville, Tennessee. So it's going to be a very exciting year from her, and our alumni office will keep an eye on her. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Casey. Next up is the consent agenda, and we will take these in 3 separate votes. First up, 3.01, approval of the minutes for the June 16th regular meeting. 3.02, approval of the minutes for the June 16th closed meeting. These are both action items.
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving 3.01 and 3.02, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Next up is 3.03, approval of the minutes from the July 7 special meeting. This is an action item.
Move approval.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, any abstentions?
Oh, abstention.
And then finally, 3.04, approval of vouchers payable, 3.05, approval of personnel items, and 3.06, approval of construction change orders. Again, these are all action items.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving 3.04, 3.05, and 3.06, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Next is 4.01, unfinished business, adoption of board policies, set number 2, and this is the second reading. This is an action item.
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions regarding the adoption of board policies, set number 2? Hearing none, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Board policies set 2 have been adopted. Next up, financial reports and budget amendments, 5.01. This is an action item.
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second regarding 5.01, the financial reports and budget amendments for period 12. Mr. Romay.
Our operating revenues for June were just over $2.8 million. We received $102,000 in current taxes, $310,000 in Proposition C revenue. Our VTS DSEG program revenues were $1.1 million. They pay 70% of our revenues for this program at the end of the year, so that's what that number represents. Transfer payments were $421,000. This is actually for 2 months. They paid the month of May was scheduled to be paid on July 9th, and they paid that early. State revenue $523,000, and federal revenue was $293,000. Our collection rate for current taxes was 97.3 or 0.43% through June, and last year was 97.41%. So very high collection rates. Our operating expenditures for June were just over $11 million. This includes all of the teacher summer paychecks. And other than the summer payroll, there were no large and unusual expenditures for the month. We ended our operating fund balance ended at $18.6 million, and this is a decrease of about $200,000 from the prior year. So we're very pleased to have that. So this really helps us going forward. Our activity accounts fund balance increased $160,000 from the previous year. Our maintenance fund balance decreased $85,000 from the previous year. We started paying some of the summer work in June, so that's part of the reason why that decrease happened. Our technology fund decreased $63,000 from the previous year. And our KCC fund, it decreased $276,000 from the previous year, and this is primarily due to the construction of the new playground. Our Proposition I fund, this is a new fund that we created during this past fiscal year. Before it was included in the operating fund, and so we began the 13-14 fiscal year with the zero fund balance. We ended with about $2.7 million, and most of this is the bond proceeds from the spring bond issue that will be used for the summer projects that are going on. Our debt service fund balance increased $113,000 from the previous year. In our construction fund, we're using this fund for the Walker Natatorium. The Walker Foundation, they reimburse the district as we pay for construction expenditures, and so for the end of 13-14, we had a negative $96,000 in this fund, which was reimbursed in the month of July. Our self-funded insurance fund balance decreased $477,000 from the previous year, and this is due to some high claims that we had during the year. Revenue amendments for the month of June, there were no revenue amendments in June. Our expenditure amendments for June total to 0. We had several transfers that we made to balance accounts and funds, and also transfers made to accommodate expenditure requests, but overall they did not increase the budget. It is recommended that the budget amendments for June be approved.
We do have a motion and a second on the budget amendments. Any questions for Mr. Romay?
Mike,
Go ahead.
just one real quick one. On the operating fund balance, how much were we anticipating that it would decline from last year when we did the budget?
$875,000. So a couple things that happened that had a significant impact. One was the payment from Riverview that we received early. That was about $200,000. Then our collection rate, we planned on a 97% collection rate. It was almost 97.5%. That's also another $200,000 of additional revenue that we weren't expecting. Now, the impact of that is delinquent taxes in the next year and coming years will be lower. They were lower this past year because the previous year we had 97.41%. So our delinquent taxes were down this past fiscal year, and they will be down next year as well.
Mike, what did we bake in on the collection rate for 14-15? It's right around there, or was it still, what did we do?
We use 97%. We've been using that for the past few years.
And Mike, can you give us an update on the status for the now concluded school year on all transfer student payments from both Normandy and Riverview? Are they current?
Everything's been paid from both school districts.
Riverview paid early, is that gonna have an adverse effect on 14-15? Were we counting on that 200 or no?
No, because I knew it could go
Close
either way. We could receive it early. And I wasn't sure if they were going to try to pay it out of their current fiscal year, which meant we would receive it early. So I wasn't planning on it in the fund balance that I reported, and then I didn't have it in the new budget. So it doesn't hurt our budget going forward. It just really helps our bottom line for this past fiscal year.
Thank you, Mike.
Any further questions? We have a motion and a second to approve the financial reports and budget amendments for period 12, June 2013, June 2014. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Next up is 5.02. This is a report from Mr. Romay regarding construction update.
We have several projects that are going on right now, and I'm happy to say all of them are on schedule. They should all be done before the start of school, and most of them will be done the first week in August. And all of them are on budget as well. And so first I'll start with the home bleacher project, and it's a little hard to see in this photo. This next one shows a close-up. And so on here, where you see the yellow board, what's going to go over that is the metal panels, similar to what you see at the awnings at the high school. Those are the only thing that won't be completed in early August, and that's because they cannot be cut to fit on site, so they have to wait till the building is constructed, and then they field measure it to make sure it's an exact measurement, and then they begin fabricating them. So those won't come in until close to the end of August. Everything else should be completed, though, in early August. And what they're doing there, this was taken on Thursday. They started installing the bleachers. All the bleachers are in now. They finished that up on Friday. The bleachers will have a sprayed-on plastic coating on them. When the bleachers came in early last week, we noticed that there were some color variations on them, and there was also some spots where some of the coating peeled up, and so we weren't happy with really any of the bleachers. And so we rejected all of them. We told the contractor that they need to what we think is that they didn't spray enough of the coating on the bleachers. And when we looked at it from kind of the side of the bleachers, you could tell that the coating on it is really paper thin. So they probably applied one coating, and it probably takes several coatings. Now, to somebody that's, the average person probably won't notice some of these color variations. And there's not time to have the bleachers fixed before the season starts. So they installed them, and then they'll fix them in the winter. It may mean removing them and taking them off site to be recoated, or they'll come in and remove them and spray them on site. The windows will go in this week, and they're working on the interiors of the buildings right now. This shows the women's restroom. It's a pretty large restroom. I believe there's 14 stalls that will be in there. And this shows the stadium from the Essex parking lot. The sod went in last week. This was taken just after it was installed, so the sod was fairly dry, and so the color will come in, and it will be playable in August. And this just shows the back side of the buildings, and this, you'll see that right here is the new sidewalk that we put in leading from Essex, and there will be lights along this walkway. Here's one of the lights there. And then also in the center here, you see these cutouts here. That's for pavers that will be going in. That's right in front of where the press box area is. And down on the very end is the road that leads in. That's a fire lane that for the fire department. So the band journalism and atlas project, that's going real well. They expect it to be done in early August. They think, we said we wanted it done by August 1st. They think they're going to be a couple days late. But other than that, it's going real well. These are the saw cut windows that are on the side of the building that face the upper fields in the stadium. This is inside the journalism room. This area here is the computer lab, so there will be several student tables with computers in this area. Over here to the right is the entrance into the area, and then right here in the middle, that's a conference area. Both sides here will be glass front windows on this front side and then on the back. Then over here on the left, there's restrooms. There'll be some sinks back there, refrigerator. Those kids are there late at night and on the weekends, so that'll be nice for them to have that. This is the Macaulay Lecture Hall. So we converted this. We built this so that we could have permanent tables in there, and then there will be seating as well. And this will hold about 102 students. They will use this for their journalism classroom. They will also use this for some assemblies, and I think they're planning to use it for staff meetings and different things like that. This is our Atlas area. This used to be the old journalism area. This wall here faces the Essex parking lot, and so we cut into this wall to provide natural lighting for those classrooms. This looks down the hallway of the Atlas area, and so to the right are all the classrooms. There's going to be 5 classrooms. They're smaller classrooms. There's also going to be an office area and a small conference area. And to the left is the Macaulay Lecture Hall. This shows one of the classrooms in Atlas, and you see the boarded area, that's the windows. These classrooms will hold about 15 students. Our band classroom, we took out a wall toward the back of this space to create additional space. We increased it by about 1,000 square foot to fit all of our band students. We will also be installing cabinets along this wall here to the left and that back wall. That will be for instrument storage. That will also help to improve the space. Work for the Walker Natatorium begun recently. We started their utility relocation, so the area where the pool is going to go is fenced off. They're working on relocating the utilities out from underneath the building footprint. That will go on until about August 8th is when they expect to be completed with that portion. In August, we will be putting out to bid the foundation and footing package. We'll bring that back to the board on September 22nd for approval. and then that piece of the work will start right after. At Kaiser, we're converting one of the storage rooms and the lowest level of the new addition to because their enrollment keeps going up. And so what you see here is that they've cut into part of the wall to increase the width of the doors and to add some windows. And this shows inside. There's not going to be any windows to the outside, but we are including windows in the hallway to provide some lighting. They're framing the classroom. They're also converting the HVAC. The space was designed, the heating and cooling was designed just for storage, not for classrooms and the number of people in the room. So that has to be converted. Also at Kaiser, we installed sound panels in the new gym, and you see that gray band. That was done at Kaiser, Robinson, and North Glendale to help with to improve their sound quality in the gyms. Also at North Glendale, because of their increasing enrollment, we had to add another classroom. This is in their old cafeteria. So we added one classroom where I took this photo. That's an area that is still currently being used for special education class, and it will continue to be used for that purpose. This classroom is all new. Originally, we thought it was going to go right up next to in the back there, you see the old kitchen. We thought it was going to go right up next to that, but we shifted it down a little bit to save some costs. So to get into that kitchen area, which is used for a student or a teacher lounge, they'll enter in behind the classroom, and that doorway into the kitchen will remain. So they began framing this classroom. And this classroom and the two at Kaiser, both those areas will be completed before the start of school. At Knifer, they have a large guidance center on the second floor. We're putting in 3 smaller meeting spaces in that guidance center to have some private meeting areas in there. Also at Knifer, we're putting in a pavilion. The PTO is paying for 2/3 of the cost of this pavilion. We put in the concrete pad last summer, and now we're putting in the structure. At Vista, we got a couple things going on there. They have this center conference area that they've been just using for meetings and different things, because if you're in there for too long, the ventilation there isn't really set up to have a large number of people in there for an extended period of time. So, and they needed this area for classroom space. So what we did was we're changing out the HVAC, and that's what you see in this photo is the ductwork that we've added into this space. Then also at Vista, we're doing something similar to what we did at Knifer in their guidance area. We're creating 3 private meeting spaces in the guidance center. That's it. So everything's going real well. Like I said, all these projects, there's a lot going on. All of it will be done in early August. And like I said, we're on budget on all these projects.
Any questions for Mike?
What, in the journalism lecture hall, you said you're putting permanent tables in there?
Mhm.
What is that going to be or look like?
It's going to be a smaller table, probably this wide. It's going to be curved that will flow along with the risers. And then behind that we're buying seating for for those tables. And so there's enough space for 102 students or staff, whoever's going to sit in there.
I was fortunate enough to go through it the other day. I walked over, and Trish happened to be there, so I got a tour
Right.
with someone in the know, which was great. And it's coming along really well, and you can tell they've got a lot of manpower on it.
Yep.
In the band rooms, and if you said this, I might have missed it, are the storage units, are they on track? And also the other furniture just for the classroom space in the journalism room, and we're looking like that's delivered or ordered and going to be delivered?
It's all been ordered. Timing is going to be cutting it very close. We expect it to be installed and ready to go for the start of school, but it's gonna be very close. There's been some delays in the furniture, that's
It-
for sure.
Thank you. And Trish intimated that perhaps we found a solution for the band uniforms to be stored. Do we, without having to rent a trailer, or do we know that?
Well, we're probably gonna have to rent something. What we thought was it was gonna have to be a conditioned storage unit. And what Trish worked with Mike Wade at the high school, and they looked at other areas in the school. And
Last year, this 2013-2014 school year, we had 4 Normandy students attend Kirkwood. As you know, they were unaccredited. In June of 2013, the Missouri Supreme Court upheld their right to transfer from unaccredited districts. In June of 2014, the State Board of Education reclassified Normandy as non-accredited and changed their name to the Normandy Collaborative School District. The State Board also lowered the tuition that would be paid to receiving districts to $7,236 per student. The State Board has approved new guidelines that are in place for the Normandy Collaborative School. The new guidelines eliminate the option for students to transfer unless they transferred to another school the year before. So basically, no new transfers can come to the Kirkwood School District this next year based on those guidelines. The new guidelines eliminate the option for students to transfer. Receiving districts may choose not to continue enrolling Normandy students as per the new DESE guidelines. The decision by the State Board is going to be questioned through litigation, and we may find out more, later this fall in terms of whether they have the authority to do that. Since we have a small number of students attending from Normandy, and since moving them will cause what we believe a substantial disruption to their education, I'm recommending that we allow the eligible students from Normandy to continue attending the Kirkwood School District during the 2014-2015 school year. Normandy is still reviewing eligibility, and thus we may not know until the first day of school whether all 4 of those are actually eligible, because they're checking their residency status. So my recommendation is that we do allow the Normandy students to return this fall to the 2014-2015 school year.
This is an action item.
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Questions for Dr. Williams? Ms. King?
Just to clarify, Dr. Williams, so this action item is to, sorry, is to accept the Normandy students, but then as far as the tuition goes, that will be in the next action item, correct?
That's correct.
So this is just simply
Just-
on whether or not, right, we are.
That's correct.
Okay, just making that clear.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve permitting the Normandy transfer, the eligible Normandy transfer students to remain at Kirkwood School District. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next up, 6.02. It's a proposal to set the Kirkwood School District tuition rates for all non-resident students for the 2014-2015 school year. Dr. Williams.
Okay, thank you. My recommendation is that the Kirkwood School District will continue to use the tuition calculation for non-resident students as per section 167.131 of the Missouri State Statute. Using this calculation, the tuition rates for non-resident students will be as follows. For elementary, it's $11,473. For middle school, it's $11,996. For the high school, it's $12,098. And I recommend that all sending districts be billed at the tuition rate calculated by State Statute 167.131.
This is an action item.
Move approval?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Questions for Dr. Williams?
Dr. Williams, there is the possibility in the case of Normandy that we could bill them one number and be paid another. Is that correct?
That's correct.
We won't really know that until that occurs, right?
That's correct.
I guess I would like to go on record as saying I think it's the right thing to do to continue to follow the state statute. I think the state is putting school boards in an uncomfortable position to make these tuition rates up as we go on the fly. And I think it's the prudent thing to continue to charge the tuition rate that we have in the past, especially given the financial situation and constraints that may be facing the district next year and in the years beyond.
Ms. King.
I also just would like to go on record too and say I think this is the right thing to do, and I fully support this recommendation, so thank you.
Mrs. Cook.
Me three. I just think that the state there's a statute that dictates how we calculate our tuition, and it's based on our actual expenses from last year. And that makes sense. That's what it costs us to educate a student, and therefore I believe that this is what we need to charge for those students.
I follow that same sentiment, and I also want to make sure we keep in mind while we're, taking a look at all these numbers, is that our local population has grown as well. So we also have to take into account why we should definitely make sure we continue to use the same tuition rate.
Yeah, I join in with all of my fellow board members and agree that Dr. Williams' recommendation should be accepted. Transfers are here. We welcomed them last year. We were told by the state of Missouri, this is how you calculate tuition for those transfer students, and we're only going to do what we did last year, which is follow the law. And so we have a motion and a second to set the rate as recommended by Dr. Williams. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next up is 6.03, approval of committee appointments and board reps to committees. As you all know, we have 4 core committees: the Communications Committee, Curriculum Committee, Revenue Committee, and Wellness Committee, which are standing committees of the school board. I've consulted with all of the fellow board members and believe we've reached a consensus on appointments and duties. I'd like to recommend the appointment of Scott Anderson again to the Communications Committee, Mrs. King to the Curriculum Committee, Mr. Frost and Ms. Backer as to serve on the Revenue Committee, Ms. King and Mr. Anderson to serve on the Wellness Committee. In addition, the board is represented on a variety of different committees, boards, and other groups. We are going to reappoint Julie Backer will be our primary representative. I will serve as her alternate. On the School District Foundation, Mr. Anderson is going to serve as the board representative. I will continue to serve at the CSD legislative rep, also serve on the Legislative Council. Mrs. Kelly will serve on the Calendar Committee, be our representative there. Ms. Jacobs on the Salary Committee. Ms. Kelly also on the Key Volunteer Committee again this year. And the Educator Evaluation Committee rep will be Ms. Jacobs and Mr. Frost. All that said, I need a motion to approve those appointments.
Do you have a motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the foregoing appointments, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion passes. Next up, 7.01, board reports. The gifted program report from Dr. Kinwall.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to talk with you this morning about key data concerning our gifted program at Kirkwood. And I would like to start by talking about the definition that we use at Kirkwood for gifted, because there are many definitions out there. And the top definition is our state definition, and it doesn't go to the level of detail that Kirkwood really likes to define our students who are gifted. And so we have chosen to use the Columbus Group definition, and the Columbus Group is a group of educators who have worked with students who are gifted for the past 3 decades, and they've dedicated their life to children who are gifted. And we truly agree with this definition in that not only do the children have advanced cognitive capacity, but they also have heightened intensity. And the higher their cognitive capacity, the higher their intensities are. And if you do research for students who are gifted, that goes back to Dabrowski's theory of overexcitabilities. And the students who have characteristics of giftedness, they have overexcitabilities in the areas of like psychomotor. So some of them are really active and they just need to move a lot of movement. Some of them have overexcitabilities in senses, so they may have really acute hearing, or maybe their skin is real acute, and as far as touch, any of the senses. Intellectual overexcitabilities, which they just crave knowledge constantly. They just have to learn all the time. Just has to come in. They crave it all the time. Some of them are imaginational, which is a very creative side. And some of them, there's an emotional intensity, which means their heart is just very sensitive, and they can feel what other people feel, and they just have this empathy that goes to a level we can hardly imagine. They could be watching a show on TV that talks about something overseas, and they could be grieving that what is happening because they feel their pain. So students who are gifted have many needs, and we have many students at Kirkwood who are gifted. So if you look at our incident rate, the state incident rate ranges from 3 to 5% on average. If you look at our total incident rate for the district at the bottom, we are at 13.4% for Kirkwood. And the buildings range from 7.4% to 21.4%. So our need for gifted services at Kirkwood is higher than the state average. At this point, we start identification processes in kindergarten and first grade, and we screen everyone in first grade, every student who is a first grader, and we monitor students in grades 2 through all the way through high school. Every time that we do benchmarking, we monitor to make sure we're not missing anyone new that has moved in, or anyone that may have developed additional skills, or they just are standing out in the classroom as having characteristics of a student who is gifted. And at this point, we have 7.5 staff members that are assigned district-wide to helping our students who are gifted. And each building has one staff member except for high school, and we have a half-time person there. Now, I didn't include all of the advanced placement courses. The teachers who teach advanced placement, according to the state of Missouri, also count as gifted facilitators. Another need that comes forth when we think of students who are gifted, we automatically assume that their learning is easy and they don't have any difficulties and they can just breeze right through school. And so I want to show you that when we look at our scores, now these are MAP and EOC scores district-wide. ELA, English Language Arts, are in orange and math is in yellow. And you can see that our scores range advanced and proficient from 95.8% in a grade level to 100%. Some of our grade levels are not at 100%. We would like them all to be at 100%. The students have the capability of being at 100%, yet there are other characteristics that make it difficult for them to perform at that level, and that's why we have our services. So we're working with perfectionism, we're working with fear of failure, we're working for what is meaningful and beneficial to them, and also a creativity. Sometimes they can look at an answer and creatively connect it to any answer. They can make any of those answers work for that question. So test-taking skills, and then motivation to perform well on the test. So all of that plays a part in what we do in our gifted program. There are some misconceptions about gifted students who are gifted. Some of them are, if a student is high achieving, they just automatically believe they're gifted. And sometimes we have students who can have a high vocabulary and can have a really high-end conversation with us. And sometimes those students are gifted and sometimes they're not. So there are 4 basic areas that we look at when we're looking at a student who's gifted, and that's cognitive capability, their creativity, their reasoning, and their academic achievement. So it's all of those together that help us with that, with identifying those students. We already talked about the learning and performing because of the social emotional piece, and their overexcitabilities sometimes get in the way of letting them show us what they really can do. And so that's what we're working with when we're working with students who are gifted. Opportunities for parents in our district. This past year, we did book studies on the overexcitabilities with our parents at different levels and provided that. Some of the, our vertical team, all of our gifted facilitators for the district, in order to meet our needs, they've been doing this work to help our students who are gifted. So this year, starting for 14-15 year, we've added another level of math calculus at the high school level because of our advanced math classes starting way at the lower grades. I mean, it's making a difference at the high end. We've reviewed our identification process to make it more culturally responsive. And the way that we are doing that is we're using a different observational tool that has been researched to show that more students who are culturally, that it responds better to students who have cultural differences. And we're also having our gifted facilitators do more observations and work with students. Like they're going to be working with all kindergarten students, every student in kindergarten, and every student in first grade, so that they can get one-on-one knowledge of all the students and work with the teachers in that identification process. We're also working to align our K-12 curriculum, and we're aligning that to the college and career readiness standards, which are the umbrella that the Common Core is based on. And the reason that we do that, we don't just hold our students who are gifted to the Common Core standards only for that grade level, is because many of them are working above grade level. So when we look at that overall umbrella and they're creating scoring guides for the students as they do their projects, they're taking pieces from every grade that could fit in that college and career readiness standard. So you might have a 3rd grader working on an 8th grade standard. You might have, you know, a 6th grader working on a 10th grade standard. It just depends. And those are individually facilitated student goals. So we're having students identify, here's where you are, how far do you want to grow, this is how you're going to measure yourself, and having them be reflective and having them assess their own learning so that we can facilitate their independence. Because they need to go as far as they can go, and it's all in their mind how far they can go, and we don't want to be the ones holding them back. There's a big motivational piece with that as well. We've had a lot of things happen in our district this year, and I can't not give you a comprehensive list, but I wanted to go through just a few things. We still have our elementary chess tournament and lessons that's provided for our students who are gifted. In grade 3, some of our students participated in a creativity team, and in grade 4, an equations team, and that was at the Gifted Resource Councils competition at UMSL. In grade 5, some of our students participated in a service project where they sent 14 children to school in Rwanda for a year. So they collected money and they sent 14 children to school for a year. That was wonderful. They enjoyed that. At middle school, we have some middle schoolers who are actually writing a book about giftedness together. And some of our middle schoolers also attended a What If conference, which is a gathering of innovation that's jump-started by curiosity, and they presented at that conference. At our high schoolers, they're doing all kinds of things. Some of the ways we are supporting them is we have classes where students can get additional help in handling their perfectionism, handling their stress management, how to set realistic individual goals, how to track progress on their goals, and just it's very personalized at the high school. So our gifted facilitators are a key to our success, and so are everyone who work with our students who are gifted, because it takes all of us working together in order to meet their needs. So what are your questions?
No questions, but a statement. First of all, thank you very much for that presentation, because a lot of times the individualized learning gets lost. You know, you're this age, you're in this class, and I think it speaks volumes to what we're doing in our district to be able to show how much we value each individual child. You know, you learn where you are, and we help you succeed where you are and grow from there. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Kinwall, I very much appreciate the focus you've brought. First time I met you, you were talking about the social emotional component of all of our kids, and with particular focus on the gifted program. I think it's been a very valuable shift in focus, and I appreciate all your efforts, and thank you for today's presentation.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Next up is 7.02, Dr. Chris Raker on a presentation of student handbooks.
Thank you. And really, I don't have a presentation because the handbooks are all posted there for you to peruse, and there's one representing each of our schools except for Vista and KECC, because they submit their handbooks at other times during the year. But what I would encourage while I have the microphone is that parents really go online and utilize these resources, because if you look at each of these handbooks, they're all different, but then again, they all have some of the same components that are really step-by-step helpful guides for parents. And of course, we always want parents to contact schools and ask questions, but sometimes just clicking and going online, there's so much information there, and school secretaries work side by side with principals for the first several weeks of the summer, typically fine-tuning those handbooks. And so I would encourage you to peruse them, enjoy them, because there's a lot of information that all of us can learn by going to those handbooks. And I did want to mention that there is one piece that will still be added to each of those handbooks. We are in the final stages of completing some updated iPad user agreements, and also those will be accompanied by some digital citizenship contracts that our students and parents will be signing as well. So we are waiting on one final detail on those, and those will be in those handbooks as well. But other than that, they are complete, and they are really, really packed with great information. So encourage you all to use them, as well as our community to use them.
Just one question, Chris. So they are online. Are there hard copies if people want hard copies?
Yes, typically what our schools do is they inquire through some format about families who would like hard copies. So all of our backpack mail and handbooks and all those things can be accessed through a hard copy. We just don't want to make more hard copies than we need, so yes.
Thank you, Dr. Raker. Next up is 8.01, future events. On Friday, August, did I skip one? I'm sorry, Dr. Williams. I did not want to miss this. 7.03,
with
report
all
on the
these-
2013-2014 volunteer hours.
With our nice group of parents here, we want to I just always want to say how blessed we are that we have the number of volunteers that we have in this district. We always try to keep track. It's not a real scientific way to keep track, but every building keeps track of the volunteer hours, and we have over 31,000 hours that we have counted this year, and so we just like to thank our volunteers. We couldn't do half of what we do without the thousands of volunteers that we have and the thousands of hours that they work and provide, hours of labor and love and financial support, and we appreciate it. So thank you, and thanks to all of our volunteers.
And I think you ran just a real preliminary number that if you applied the minimum wage to the number of hours that were contributed, it represents about $250,000 in assistance to the district, which is not insignificant by any measure.
That makes up that $200,000 shortfall we had this last year.
We're only that easy.
And then next is future events. Friday, August 8th at 11:15 a.m. is the new teacher community luncheon over at North Kirkwood Middle School. I know all of the board members are invited and are encouraged to attend. On the 13th, Wednesday the 13th of August at 8 a.m. is the district opening day workshop at the Keating Theater, which is always a very fun day. Always fun to see the marching band come in at the end. Monday the 18th is Freshman Day at the high school. Also Monday the 18th at 7 p.m. is our next regularly scheduled board meeting here at ASC. Dr. Williams, is there a need for a closed session? I will need a motion.
Motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We'll take a roll. Ms. King?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next up, we will need a motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor of adjournment, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you for attending.